This is MrsAgroSquerril staying in for Agro while he recovers from some vocal strain. He is recovering, but it could take a while still. I hope you enjoy. Interplanet Janet by Barsum Israel. Janet McKinney squealed in delight as her father swung her around the room, carefully avoiding any stray furniture that may appear. "Look who it is," her dad said loudly. Janet squeezed her eyes closed, enjoying the rush of air on her face. "Who is it?" he asked. "Janet," the little girl laughed. "I'm Janet." "Not just Janet, though. Who are you?" he asked, laughing himself as he watched his daughter's face. "I'm Janet, just Janet," she squealed. Her father increased the speed he was twirling her around the room. She yelled in response, her heart fluttering in panic and laughter at the same time. "Who are you?" he prompted her again. I'm, Janet began, and her father increased the speed even more. It was too much for the little girl to take. "Ah!" she yelled. "I'm Interplanet Janet." "Who?" "Interplanet Janet," she yelled, trying to catch her breath. "Interplanet Janet." "And what is she?" her father asked, slowing the speed a little. "A galaxy girl," Janet laughed. "A galaxy girl." Her father laughed and slowed the spinning down, and instead had her start flying all over the living room, diving towards the couch only to pull up at the last second before impact, and then head for the window or the door. "That's right," he agreed, and then he began to sing. He began to sing her song. "Interplanet Janet, she's a galaxy girl," he sing-songed to his daughter, "a solar system miss from a future world." Little Janet smiled in pure delight at these words. "She travels like a rocket with her comet team," he continued in his calming, familiar voice. "And there's never been a planet Janet hasn't seen," he sang, flying her down the hallway to her room. "No, there's never been a planet Janet hasn't seen." And with these final words, Janet landed safely laughing in her bed. "Daddy," she asked, still giggling as he tucked her in for the night, "did you make up my song?" Smiling, her father tousled her hair. "No, Galaxy Girl, I did not. It is an ancient song they used to sing to teach children about the galaxy." "Oh," Janet replied. She almost sounded disappointed. "But," her father continued, "that doesn't mean it does not fit you to a T." Her smile promptly returned. "Night, Daddy." "Night, honey." Janet McKinney had joined the Earth Defense Force as soon as she turned 18. She had dreams of flying in space, protecting and serving her planet from all threats, both alien and human. Interplanet Janet, indeed. Her father stood, beaming and proud as she walked across the stage and received her certificate. She tried not to smile, but it was hard not to. 16 months of grueling training led her to this moment, and her parents were there to celebrate this achievement with her. What was there not to smile about? And to her great delight, when she finally got her assignment, it was to pilot a small, one-man fighter vessel. This was her greatest wish, and she was overjoyed when she was informed. She still remembered laughing when her commander, who was rattling off duty assignments, told her, "J. McKinney, you are a pilot of an XJ-64 Comet." As she laughed, the commander paused and glared at her. "This amuses you, pilot?" he asked sternly. "No, sir," Janet replied. "Just happy to be out there with my comet team." And again she let out a little laugh. The commander gave Janet a disapproving look, obviously not getting the reference. "Pilot, you may want to lay off whatever it is you have been smoking," and then continued on down the list. The Turth came out of nowhere. They just appeared on the outskirts of human space and began to systematically eradicate human settlements and place their own on the bones of the dead. The Earth Defense Force contacted the Turth, seeking a peaceful resolution, but the Turth's reply was simple. "We have concluded that there is less than 1.85% chance of your race being victorious in battle over us. There is no need for diplomacy. We will take what we desire." And true to their word, the Turth did just that. So the Earth Defense Force went to war, and quickly learned that the Turth were far superior militarily than themselves. It seemed that the Turth melded artificial and organic intelligence, actually plugging circuits and electronic control devices in their own brains, to ascertain not only what an enemy will do, but what it might do as well, planning for every contingency. If a human fighter flew at them, they did not just shoot where the vessel was. they fired at the most likely locations it might veer off to, ensuring the destruction of the enemy. This turned out to be incredibly effective, and the turret seemed unstoppable. They won victory after victory. In desperation, the Earth Defense Force sent their best fighter pilots in their fastest ships. The XJ-64 Comet, armed with massive missiles they nicknamed Doomsday Missiles, to attack the turret's larger ship, a behemoth the humans just called the Dreadnought. Janet McKinney was one of those pilots. Janet fought with her squadron valiantly, but the turret, they were as deadly as ever. One by one, she watched in horror as the little blue dot on her nav unit blinked out and disappeared, each signifying a squad member, a friend, killed in battle. Some pilots had managed to fire their Doomsday missiles at the Dreadnought, but the missiles were destroyed before ever getting close enough to do damage. Soon, the last blue light blinked out. Janet felt her Comet shudder with an impact and slowly eased off the throttle. There was no chance. None at all. Her whole squad, destroyed. Her own ship had somehow survived, but Janet felt that was due to the turret wanting to question an enemy pilot alive rather than her flying skills. The shot that had crippled her was not as bad as it looked. Her XJ-64 Comet was venting plasma into space, and she seemed adrift, but in reality her ship was still fully functional. Not that that does much good, she thought, looking at the enemy Dreadnought floating before her. Her comm suddenly came active. "Human pilot," a metallic voice screeched over her comms. "Stand down. Prepare to be taken, and identify yourself." Janet looked at the ship in front of her, taking up her entire viewport. It was immense, bristling with weapons and technology she could not begin to understand. Her own Doomsday missile seemed almost comical in comparison. She was about to be taken. No human pilot ever returned after being taken. She would rather crash her ship into that beast than suffer that fate, but any move she made would be countered by the mechanically augmented minds of the turret. She would be vaporized before she ever got close, and as for firing her missile, there was no way it would penetrate the defenses of that ship. It would be shot out of space within seconds of launching. Stifling a little sob, she looked at the picture one last time. The picture she put in her Comet the day he died. His picture. Her father. She never felt safer than when she was held in his arms, flying over the tables and chairs in their small house, her mother yelling at him in fear that he may drop her or she would crash into something. But her mother was wrong. Her father always protected her. Always. And then Janet realized she had one last flight to make with her father. One last trip around the universe, be it the living room of a house or a far-flung galaxy filled with hostile life forms. Her and her father had one final journey to make together. Ripping the picture from its place on the console, she stuck it directly onto the navigation controls of her ship. "Human pilot!" The metallic screeching began again, but Janet ignored the voice while she disconnected the automatic guidance assistant programs and went 100% to human control. "Prepare to be taken and identify yourself," the voice droned. Janet activated the comms. "Identify myself?" she asked, in an effort to buy a bit more time while she prepared herself for what was about to come. There was the slightest hesitation before the metallic voice responded. "Yes, identify yourself." "Who am I?" Janet asked, prepping the engines for one last run. There was no response. "Who am I?" she asked louder and started to move her ship forward. In response, Janet noticed the behemoth's weapons start to target her, picking where she was as well as where she might move to. "Yes," the metallic voice intoned. "One last time, who are you?" Janet smiled, her eyes narrowing. She activated the comms again. "I'm Interplanet Janet, bitch," she yelled and slammed the throttle to full. "I'm a galaxy girl." And then she shut off the comms as her ship screamed through space. Immediately, the turret vessel opened fire, targeting her little ship. But Janet was not driving it. Not really. Janet was flying over chairs and tables again, going in circles that had no rhyme nor reason. Dipping down low, then soaring to a great height, only to turn and head in the opposite direction yet again. And Janet, the whole time, was laughing. Her eyes were open, but they did not see the enemy ship. Instead, She saw a happy memory of an end table loom up out of nowhere, and her father lifting her at the last second and swung her away. She saw a chair, which her father expertly avoided, skimming close enough for her to feel it scrape against her shirt. But she was never in any danger, not when he was the one flying her around. The Turth ship had started to fire almost blindly. Energy weapons, missiles, even kinetic weapons sizzled past Janet's little ship. But none were able to hit their mark. This human's movements were not predictable by any algorithm the Turth used. It made no sense. None whatsoever. She was not trying to target any particular part of their ship. She just seemed to be completely insane. Human pilot! The Turth tried contacting her, but she did not listen. Her eyes were half closed, her face split in the widest smile she had since she was a child. The Turth realized that this pilot had somehow, inexplicably, entered into the danger zone perimeter of their ship. This had never happened before. The Turth gunners flew into a frenzy, firing everything they had at the human ship that seemed to always just move at the last second, avoiding certain death. "Human pilot!" They yelled across their comm systems, watching the little ship bob and weave with no particular pattern. It almost looked like she was just having fun. But the ship, it had fully cleared the protective area of the dreadnought. This human pilot and her ship? This was a very real threat. "Human pilot!" Janet knew she was within the area of the enemy ship. They could not stop her. She knew her father had flown her where she needed to go. Still smiling, she continued to get closer and closer to the enemy ship, every inch making it more impossible for their huge guns to even target her anymore. "Interplanet Janet!" the Turth yelled. "Interplanet Janet! Stop your approach!" And at that, hearing her father's name for her come from the metallic cybernetic voice of a hostile alien race, begging her to stop, Janet activated her comms and let out a loud, happy, joyous laugh. The laugh of a child, warm and safe and loved. "Stop? Stop? Stop this," she said, still laughing, and pressed the launch button of her doomsday missile. It streaked from her ship and impacted the dreadnought, engulfing it in a horrific explosion. A cascade of fire, molten metal, and death ripped the Turth vessel to its core, engulfing everything near it. This included Janet's small ship. She had been at point-blank range when she fired, and she knew there would be no surviving her actions. What Janet did not know was that another wave of human fighters were approaching. They saw the carnage and destruction that had been wrought upon the Turth dreadnought, and saw that it was defenseless. And the humans took full advantage. The Turth, the scourge of the galaxy, for the first time ever had the taste of defeat. Wholly and utterly. None of their equations, data, or algorithms had predicted this was even a possibility. So the Turth had a brand new emotion to have to try and process. Uncertainty. The Council of War on Earth studied the footage of that battle, which the Turth just called the IPJ miscalculation. The Council discovered that the Turth, so strict and orderly, so hell-bent on processes and methodical precision, had one glaring weakness. It appeared that the best way to beat order was with chaos. Instead of planning and tactics, which any sane soldier relies on, they had to be chaotic and without direction. You could not beat the Turth at their own game. You had to even the odds. Fight algorithms with randomness. Fight precision with haphazard tomfoolery. You had to fight them like Janet did, without rhyme or reason. After the destruction of their dreadnought, the Turth were on the defensive, and the humans, using the tactics shown to them by Janet, started to win skirmishes. Then they started to win battles, and soon it was apparent they were going to win the war. When the Turth sued for peace, requesting the humans' terms for their surrender, it became known as IPJ Day. It seemed only fitting. If you were to go to the Planetary Tactics and Assessment College at the military base in San Francisco on Earth, you will see there a statue of a young woman with an endearing smile. The name etched on the base of that statue says Interplanet Janet, and her rank, given only to her and no other military officer ever before or after, a rank higher than Admiral, Galaxy Girl. End of story.
I'd greatly like to thank our Tier 5 channel members, Casper Arnholtz, John Creighton, Manatharia, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.